Well, next, I'd like to introduce Kanwar Chadha, who is CMO and member of the board of directors for CSR and founder of Surf. And he is really the brains and the visionary behind this annual meeting that we're now in the fourth annual. Kanwar, come on up and let's have a little bit of a chat for a few minutes, and then I think we'll have an opportunity for a bit of a break. Nice to have you. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
So it's been a great year for your company, and it has been a year where, as we've talked about, location is getting increasingly woven into just about everything we're doing from a mobile and applications perspective. You know, what have you seen in the past? You know, if you sort of trace back to this event a year ago and now, what are the 3 or 4 things where we've sort of made the most progress, and then what are some areas that you're very focused on in terms of the next phase?
I think from a location industry perspective, and if you look at this emerging world of what we call location-aware connected space, the most important thing is, the positive side is everybody is starting to now take location for granted. I didn't even realize that whenever I took pictures with my iPhone, it was automatically geotagging it. And then I saw this icon called Places, clicked on it and found out I can now locate wherever I took in last 1 year, whatever pictures I took. So we are starting to basically take location for granted. That's the good news. The bad news is, I think the consumer expectations of what location can do are still not very clear. And you know, there is an impression that just a basic location solves the problem. And I don't think that's true. As people start using location more and more, our expectation of the quality of service is going to become more important. And I think as an industry, we really haven't focused on that as yet. I remember in the early days when we launched Surfstar 2 and the initial portable navigation systems were coming up, we were very happy that you could get a portable navigation system. And then as we start using it, we started finding out it doesn't work here. It worked 85% of the time, but that 10 to 15% of the time it didn't work was the most frustrating aspect. And then you go to Surfstar 3 and Surfstar 4, and we have more of a quality of service for navigation. But when you start taking location in a broader sense, I think the quality of service for geotagging is very different than quality of service for navigation, which is navigation is primarily an outdoor activity. Geotagging and social networking are indoor and outdoor combinational activities. So that's one thing. Second thing is, I think the mobile phone platform has really become the dominant platform for location. And that has impacted some other industries negatively, especially portable navigation and all that industries. But over a period of time, we are starting to see more and more content and services now which are being built around that platform, and that's the opportunity which has been created.
Yeah, so what's interesting is as soon as we're in the consumer market with this, in some ways they're your least forgiving customers in terms of expectations, and what you were describing is very similar to what the evolution of cellular was, which is, it was great, initially in the early days of cellular, hey, I can make a call from a portable phone of some sort. Actually, it was an in-car phone, but at least I can make calls when I'm mobile, and then all of a sudden, now the expectation is I can make a call from just about anywhere on the planet. So in terms of that next phase of getting QoS for consumer applications, which relies on more accuracy, relies on indoor, what's the technology path there, and how quickly do we get there?
Yeah, I think if you look at location today, we actually associate location with GPS and navigation as the primary application. As we start growing broader, we have to start looking at is GNSS the most suitable system for indoor location? And clearly, it's not optimized for indoor because the signals from satellites are not that stronger. So from an industry standpoint, our focus, and from our company standpoint, our focus is now looking at fusion of multiple technologies which allow us to take advantage of whatever sensors are there in the device and get you the best location possible. FedEx has a pretty interesting example with the SenseWare, where they have put together multiple technologies to create an element which allows them to have location awareness anywhere, indoors, outdoors, and connectivity anywhere. Clearly, in a consumer space, you can't afford, things which are not into the platform. So we have to deal with sensors which are into the platform and see how can we use them for location. Good thing is in the smartphones nowadays, you're starting to see some of the MEMS sensors, whether it's accelerometers or even gyros. Clearly, you have multiple radios. You have the cellular radio. Many of them have Wi-Fi. So lots of research is going into how do we combine information from all these sensors, which were not optimized for location themselves, but have some elements which are useful for location. And actually, if you'll see, we have some demos here of indoor location using MEMS sensors, which are there in this platform. These are not the sophisticated gyros and accelerometers which we have in automobile side. These are very simple sensors, but we can still use them for getting some location. GNSS is clearly the core platform because that's the only global system optimized for location. And there we are starting to see more progress, GPS in US, GLONASS and Galileo coming up in Europe, Compass in China, and India has their own satellite system coming up. So in the next few years, you will see 5 satellite systems. That helps. You will see Wi-Fi being more prevalent. That helps. You are going to see more MEMS sensors in these devices. Even cameras have now sensors. And the cellular, when you combine it with GNSS, actually is a very useful location system.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there, and we've already seen it with in terms of the way they leverage the Wi-Fi networks. But and what about sort of the monetization piece of location? That's been interesting because we see it being sort of woven into a lot of applications today. So that's been great from a consumer perspective, and it's good for you because you're just selling more and more devices. But for we have a lot of developers in the room and so on. Is this just something that sort of gets baked into to a device and an application, sort of like cameras and so on, or are there other ways in which you see this being monetized?
Actually, I think hardware was probably the first one to suffer from the commoditization of location. The P&Ds and even the chip suppliers, the volumes went up, but the prices went down. And then one by one, the other elements started getting the same impact. Google made the maps free, so now the maps companies had to figure out how to monetize it. Then they made the navigation free, now the navigation companies have to figure out how to monetize it. I think you have to basically look at the models very differently. Ultimately, we have, as an industry, have to make money. Some of that comes directly by selling devices. Some of them comes directly by subscription services, and lots of it is going to come indirectly, in my opinion, through other ways. And there are 2 ways of looking at it. I think there are going to be base services and base location capability which will be commoditized. I mean, there's no question that every mobile phone sooner or later is going to be location aware. Most of the consumer devices sooner are going to be location aware. And that level of location awareness is going to be commoditized, and there's not going to be that much monetization on it, except for the fact that you have such a large base that you can monetize it through advertisement and all that. But that's not directly monetizable, whether that's hardware, whether that is service, which is a base service. So I think the base concept of location awareness is going to be taken for granted, and people who will monetize it who have the scale. But once you have a platform which is so widely available, now you can start looking at how do I give consumer the experience they want, which is more specialized. In one way to look at it is, if you look at the whole cloud, right? The cloud is going to allow you to access content from any device, anywhere in the globe. Now, but there is so much content there. When I am in New Delhi, I'm not really interested in content in New York or content in Beijing. I want content which is very relevant to the location I am in. When I'm at night in New Delhi, the content I'm looking for is very different than during the daytime. So I think we as an industry, both from a content provider standpoint, service provider standpoint, as well as technology standpoint, have to now start looking at how do I now give consumer the experience, given that there is certain amount of commoditization of content and hardware, but I can give them superior experience by providing a value add. It's almost like a TV. There are certain channels you get for free, and then you get premium channels. Same thing for technology. I can give almost anybody today base location technology, which works reasonably well for navigation. Now, to make it work inside a mall is a step beyond.
Right.
To make it work inside the parking garage is a step beyond. If I'm going to provide OnStar type of service, it's a service which gives you quality of guarantee.
Right.
If you're going to build a child tracker service, that's a service which requires a different quality of guarantee. So I think that's where the monetization is going to come, is how do I differentiate in a commoditized ecosystem. Commoditized ecosystem is important because that has created now a large base to create that differentiation.
Right. So it's woven into applications, but then a lot of the opportunity for you is gradations of quality of service depending on who the user is and the application.
And what the
case.
application is. Quality of service for social networking is very different than for auto navigation.
Right, right.
In some senses, it's more important to have indoor location with social networking, but not very accurate location. While for navigation, I don't care about indoor, but I want very accurate. So those are different.
Particularly as you see, if you see some of the data coming out of, whether it's iPhone or Android devices, the percentage of use of those devices that are actually occurring indoors is incredible and very, very different than sort of in history of cellular. So that presents a good opportunity.
Well, that's a good example. Yesterday, I was in an indoor location, actually at CTIA, and I tried to get a location from my iPhone, and it put me in Atlantic City somehow or another. So